Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
And today's episode 190-something, not quite sure. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell. That way, up to date on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2for1 studios. As we have always said, it's the best place to consume all the content. And if you didn't know, listeners, unless you're honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas, that they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Daniel, it's episode 190-something, and we are talking True Detective Season 4.
Season 5. No, you're right. Season 4. Sorry. Okay, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
I think it's Season 4. Okay,
right.
so I first of all want to get your general thoughts on it, and then as well as not a long explanation, but your relationship with True Detective up until this point.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that part. So I only watched True Detective Season 1 within the last 3 or 4 years, I want to say. It's been relatively recent that I jumped on the train. Obviously, Season 1 is one of the best detective stories ever on TV, maybe the best. Phenomenal cast, phenomenal plot, and just the style of it. It all came together. It was great. I still have not watched Season 2, which I don't know if I should keep on that or not. But Season 3, I really enjoyed. Actually finished Season 3 in the middle of Season 4 because we were coming up against a break. We had to wait another week, and we just wanted more True Detectives. So we're like, let's watch Season 3. So we finished Season 3 in between watching Season 4. Really liked Season 3. It's not quite at the level of Season 1 in terms of like maybe emotional payoff. But I do think it was really well constructed, really well acted, and I just enjoyed the ride being in Season 3. It felt good. Season 4. I'll tell you, I started this season really engaged with the mystery. I loved the location, the idea of like constant darkness, like the entire show taking place at nighttime, in Alaska. I think that's really interesting. And the idea of living in a place where it's dark all the time is just inherently creepy. And when you've got a mysterious murders going on, I think that's a great setting. I enjoyed the cast for the most part, but man, I gotta say the ending of this season did not do it for me. I was pretty disappointed with the way they wrapped up some of the plot. I feel like it was pretty dissatisfying to me in some ways. I also just feel like this season feels markedly different to me than the past seasons of True Detective. I'm curious on your perspective on that, especially considering I haven't watched Season 2. This, every season has dabbled with somewhat supernatural elements going on, right? Like to some degree, even if you want to say, in Season 3, it's, there's almost this weird thing of like,
I haven't seen Season 3, so be careful.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I forgot that. I'm sorry. There's hints of like powers going on, like that the world is maybe there is some sort of supernatural element to the world, or there is some sort of like, just magic in the world. And I think that was even present in Season 1 too, especially kind of with McConaughey's character.
It feels more philosophical in terms of, to me, it leans more towards philosophical supernatural in terms of like these grandiose ideas, these things, these different ideologies, but it feels like by the end of it, it's almost always cleared up in some way, kind of.
Yeah, I agree. There's always a rational explanation kind of thing. And I at least, there was this just like the satanic murder cult that was kind of the topic of Season 1. That in of itself just alludes to, well, what if in this world the satanic murder cults have actual power, whatever. The way that Season 4 ended, to me, it was so open-ended in a way of like it really leaves the door wide open to some sort of supernatural element to the mystery. I also just don't think that the main characters earned their arcs. I don't feel like I understand why Navarro feels suddenly more free now, other than solving the one murder that was her friend. But that to me wasn't built up enough as being like the reason she has no peace for it to be like, oh, well, now that she's solved this, it makes sense that she's living free in one way or another. Anyway, and I just felt like at the end of the day, Jodie Foster, she started out as a really unlikable character, and I can roll with that if there's intention behind it. And I just don't think they did enough at the end of it for me to be like, wow, I'm glad that character was in there. Like I appreciate her acting. It was really strong. I mean, Jodie Foster's an all-timer. But to me, it wasted her character, to me, is what it felt like at the end. I don't care about her by the end of the show. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, one thing I've not done yet post watching the show is I haven't asked these hard questions. I haven't thought yet about what were the characters' arcs? Did they accomplish at the end? I've kind of almost just went along with the ride and just how do I feel about it now that it's ended? Which I think that to me is the thing I want to spend most of our time on now that you've brought that up. Real quick, I think season one of True Detective is one of, if not one of the best seasons of television ever.
Yeah.
And it's been hugely inspirational for me, even all the way to Chronos, to just a lot of things that I make. I use scenes from that for my like tone reels and stuff like that when I was developing the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Keller palette. I mean, everything about that show. To me, it's 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, perfect. And I think the way it ends, we could do 10 podcasts on that show, like a rewatch podcast.
Yeah, that'd be
and
fun.
The way it ends, I think, is one of the best endings ever for anything. And season two
especially a mystery. I just want to say, because those are the hardest things to land. I think mysteries depend on the conclusion. Like if the conclusion fails, it can make the rest of the mystery feel stupid. And so I think even just to say season one in a genre where it's almost in some ways it's all about the ending. It's all about the reveal. They nailed it.
Well, it's about the last line of the show for me.
Right. Yes.
It's about, real quick, there's the heavens, the stars, and it started out as darkness, and even though there's a little bit of stars there, and it's mainly 98% nothing, like the good's winning, the light's winning because darkness was first.
Mm-hmm.
And so light's peeking through in some way. I got chills thinking about it just now.
Yeah,
it's so good, dude.
It is
so good. Season two is got great actors in it. I think it's got Rachel McAdams.
Yeah.
I can't think.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell and is it Taylor something else? Aaron something?
It's that typical comedy. Vince Vaughn.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
There's one other guy in it. I think it's the young guy from something.
Taylor Kitsch.
But anyway, Taylor Kitsch. Yeah, he was Gambit in X-Men Origins. Everybody.
That's right. Yep.
Taylor Kitsch. So that's I think the performances are great. The show is more of like a hard edge kind of crooked cop kind of show. It's not season one. I still enjoy parts of it, but it's just nowhere. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I would still watch it. I never saw season three. I've only seen the first episode of season three. I should watch that the most. It's shot here in Arkansas. I say here, shot in Arkansas. It's got Corbin in it, which is in Michael Kronos. I just have never, for some reason, I just keep not doing it, but it's on my to-do list in a big bad way.
Sure.
Season four, I love Jodie Foster. I've seen Jodie Foster in real life. And at the Hotel
In
Artemis screening. Yes, I went there with Sterling K. Brown and her, and it was kind of wild because I love Silence of the Lambs, right? That's our probably big connection to hers. Again, huge influence on all the things that we're working on now and all the things I've always been working on.
Yes.
I think first episode, second episode, I love the character. To me, I was kind of like, I'm invested in all these character stories.
Sure.
I felt like they were giving me enough. I loved the environment, like you said. I liked the cinematography. I liked all these things. Like I was in for this kind of thing. I loved them being found in the snow and the bodies all fucked. Like to me, that's like serial killer gold. Like, yep, Donovan's in kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I also keep loving that we are adding in these other cultures. Like
Absolutely.
I like learning about that kind of stuff. It's because it just makes it different for me.
One of the
Um,
best parts of of this season was getting all of that native Alaskan kind of
I
flavor.
like it.
It was great. It was
Again,
great.
I just have a soft spot for Native American culture.
Mm.
I do. So on top of that, episode like midway through the season, I was kind of like, I don't know, it kind of started losing me a little bit, and then I
Yeah.
was more game at the end. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's as far as television goes, it's very well made. The performances
Yeah.
are good. The mystery ends up, it's more simple than I think maybe people wanted or expected. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a problem people are having.
Well, and there's yeah.
That on top of, I think you're right, where some of the things like example here, and we'll just start here, Daniel. This is
Yeah.
kind of I
Dig
think
in.
the meat we're going to start with
Spoilery
this.
McSpoiler face. Yep.
Not the mystery so much as who cares, right? It's fun. It's about whatever. I think the problem is that the mystery is not super extravagant. And then on top of that, the more important thing is that you're right, the character arcs, we don't really know kind of what the show is trying to tell us. We don't really
No.
know who the characters are. I think the show is trying to, obviously look where the show is at. We're in Alaska. It's always
Yeah.
dark. People are always dying. It's about being alone, right? It's
Sure.
about being
Yeah.
alone. It's about being at your lowest point, being alone, and how do you get out of that. I just don't see, let's start with Jodie Foster's character.
Yeah.
It seems like they're kind of hinging on, mainly in the beginning and mainly at the end, which is always a problem, the death of her child, Holden.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess the idea is that there's something in the afterlife and that he is around. It's not just we're not alone,
Sure.
but
Yeah, I think for me it's
it's
just
odd.
it is, and I think to me what is frustrating is that I first of all I don't want to clarify, I did enjoy the ride. I don't think I was ever bored. I was always
Yeah.
kind of entertained and being pulled along and being interested in
Well,
something. I just think
bro, can I
yeah,
real quick
jump
solve
in.
the problem? Like I think I know what the problem is.
Go ahead.
So the mystery is, right, like who killed Annie Holden or who killed the scientist, right? And the
Right.
idea that keep presenting to us in the supernatural way is that it's Annie, and that
It was
she's
trying
awake,
to push
she's
us.
this.
Yes, yes.
They're pushing us this way. I never believed that because I've seen True
Sure.
Detective, but they kept pushing you that way. And so then the idea is that, okay, it's not supernatural,
Right.
even though it could be like this overlaying, like because of her spirit, because of these things, these chess pieces happened,
But there
right?
are certain elements that aren't explained at all by the show. Like
Sure,
the tongue.
but
The tongue.
right, real quick though. So the idea is that they're presenting it could be supernatural. It turns out it's not. It's these
Right.
women.
Right.
It's the workers. They've already
Right.
kind of solved the mystery ahead of time because they knew where the hatch was.
Right.
But then Jodie Foster is told that Holden is still around in a way, right? That there's
Sure.
an afterlife.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
alone, right? I think
Right.
the issue is if you make it more of a horror thing, make it more supernatural, then that sticks more. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like you
Well,
make it where they did die by something supernatural and that there is an after, like it's more blatant.
Sure. And,
But I mean, I'm saying like I think
yeah, I get
by
it.
pulling the rug, it being the women, and then also still telling Jodie Foster that your son's still around. I feel like it kind of contradicts, and it kind of also
It kind of does, but I mean, okay. Question for you: what
Sure.
do you believe? What did Navarro do at the end of the show? Did she, where did she, is she a spirit person now, like
Yeah.
guarding the Alaskan, or is she like a real person just living in the wilderness and somehow at peace now?
I think she died at the end.
You think she died?
Yeah,
From
there's no
what?
version where from the cold.
No, Navarro.
I think I know.
Oh, you think she just walked into the cold and died? And so
Yeah.
that one of the final shots, her standing next to Jodie Foster.
Yeah, that-
you think
that's
she's a ghost?
I think it's symbolic. It's symbolic with the rest of the show that even when you're alone, you're not alone.
Sure.
People
Sure,
because they're set.
fair.
They're even. Well, I just think that's what I don't
But
know.
I will
but
say, I mean, to me, it did not. The show does not clearly indicate either way. Honestly, the show,
No,
and I
well,
would
they
say the
weren't-
show even
they didn't
hints,
want to.
they didn't, which I think is sometimes
Yeah.
works. I didn't think it worked here. But I just okay. To me, the big sin of this show is that the plot, I'm struggling to connect the plot of what happens and how they figure everything out with anything having to do with internal character arcs at all. Like I don't understand, what did Jodie Foster and Navarro, what did they do that collectively put them where they could find the mystery? Like how did their internal arcs affect the plot? To me, they feel so disparate. To me, it's like, I mean, Navarro's internal plot is she's restless because she never, this murder that's been weighing on her, and she's kind of aimless in life.
Murder? The one
Annie's. Annie's murder. I mean, it's like the one that haunts her, right?
Which Navarro, correct?
Navarro, yes, Navarro.
Okay.
Yes, it's like, I mean, where we start with her in the show is like she's kind of aimless. Sure. She's working highway patrol, not really enjoying it. This murder weighs on her, and so when she finds out about this new murder that could be connected, she has to get involved or whatever, right? And I think, I don't know. I guess to me, like, it just felt very disconnected. I mean, if in the middle of the season there was one whole episode that had no plot in it, it was all about internal character arcs. But at the same time, or like it was all about like interpersonal struggles, right? Just no plot. They kind of abandoned it a little bit in the middle. But to me, again, it's not like I can say, oh yeah, Jodie Foster really had to understand that she's not alone. So no. She only her character arc only came about when they solved the murder, right? Like Jodie Foster's character arc ended after they figured out the mystery, essentially, right? Because that's when she has that discussion with Navarro about, he's here, he whatever.
I mean, I think no. I mean, they correct me if I'm wrong. Her internal arc is kind of cleared up whenever what they're trying to say is when she asks her, "What did Holden say?" Right?
Sure, but what I'm
and
saying
then
is,
after that is when they're revealed that the women actually did X, Y, and Z.
Okay. Either way, though, it had nothing
I'm not saying
to
it's
do
strong.
with, they had nothing to do with each other, right?
I agree. I agree.
At a level of like, typically, your internal arc influences your external arc, right? The typical version is you can't accomplish your physical arc until you've accomplished your internal arc. That's typical.
The argument I can see is that the external arc is what puts her in a life-threatening situation where she is confronted with death. And in her final moments, she wants to believe in something else. Does it make sense?
Is that her final? Why is that her final moment?
She falls into the water and she's freezing to death, and she doesn't know if she's going to die or not. And then she asks her, "What did Holden say?" Because she could die of hypothermia.
Sure.
So to me, that's the argument. I'm not saying it's strong. I'm just saying that's if I had to combat it, which I don't want to. I think it's weak.
And I will say too, like, you can have unlikable characters. I think Lost is an amazing example of this. You can start some characters and just they're assholes. No one likes them. Every time they're on screen, they're bothering characters you like.
Unlikable.
I think she was really unlikable. She's like cheating on. She's like, had a 19-year affair with someone else in the department. She acts pretty racist. She has like a few racist outbursts where she's like telling her daughter, like, don't act like you're kind, like wipe that shit off your face, basically. Like and I think what they tried to do was make her like, you understand why she's unlikable. I just don't think they did enough legwork to be like, okay, I have empathy for her now. I don't have a lot. Like I think I read someone losing their.
I think I read the Native American thing a little differently, but I totally see it.
I mean, if she is trying, I actually believe she's doing it to try to protect her daughter because she sees that as like, oh, they'll target you, and that's fine. But they don't do enough to, like, on the other side of that, show that, oh yeah, she is more empathetic, and like I didn't care.
Well, she does. Her daughter does get beat by the police.
Yes.
I'm saying I see the thread. Let me back up. Let me correct my statement. Do I think she's I enjoyed watching the characters, what I should have said.
I enjoyed her performance.
I don't ever want to hang out with this person in real life.
Yes.
Maybe that's what you mean by unlikable.
Heroic, or like at the end of the day, it's just like,
I think Walter White I mean, you could say Walter White's unlikable, but I love
I
that
think he's
character.
actually very likable. He's a very
Okay, well,
likable bad guy.
I think we just had
he's a bad guy that you want to root for, even though you know he's doing bad shit. You
okay.
want to
Well,
like him.
I think we're just getting caught up in the semantics of
Sure.
unlikable. So
Yes.
I think I agree with you.
It's
I
just
think
like
agree with you.
it is this thing of like, well, I like Jodie Foster. I liked her performance. I just wish her character had been more cool or interesting, I guess, or just that they had really fleshed her out a little more. Can we talk about the tongue real quick? Because that is the one thing that is like either it's supernatural or it's stupidly convoluted, I guess, right?
I mean,
Because the
part of
tongue was
part of it,
fresh. It was like it had been just recently. It wasn't a decay, and this has been like 5 years after the murder. So in theory, whenever the scientists murdered her, they called what's his name dad that he shot halfway through the show, which we can get to that. I don't even know what the fuck I'm supposed to think about any of that. Like that just felt random and like also just completely left hanging, that whole little arc with him and his family, other than his wife kissing him. I don't know. That was weird. But so the scientists kill Annie. They call the mine to say, we need to cover this up. So they call the corrupt policeman. He takes her out to wherever, beats her body up to make it look like it's retaliation for her protesting, cuts her tongue out, and we don't know what he does with it at all. We're assuming he throws it away. But this tongue, seemingly freshly cut, like it's either been frozen since then and like perfectly preserved, or some supernatural shit is going on, is found in the science building, like when they arrive to investigate it, and it's her tongue.
like 7 years later, right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. And so like, okay, so the theory, I mean, did the native ladies find it and save it? Did they somehow?
Yeah, I don't care too much
like-
about it, honestly. I
But
think
it's just, to me, it's
I think-
that's
there's
not
two
tight
things.
writing. It's not.
well, there's two things.
I
It's
don't
two things, Daniel. It's one. I think to me, I very rarely have looked at rumors or theories or whatever.
Sure.
I've seen like maybe
Me either.
the headlines of articles.
Yeah.
So whenever the moment when she asked the kind of the head of the clan at the end, the female clan, like,
Sure.
what about the tongue? She said, I have no idea about a tongue. Her performance there, you can read that 10 different ways.
Sure.
She
But
doesn't,
even if you
she's,
believe that they did it, how did they do it? And it like that is such a leap
no.
in logic.
Who
It's
cares?
like that, but to me, I care that the show doesn't care. I care that the writers
Well,
decided we don't
I
need
think-
any of it. I guess to me, because
Well,
I
this-
agree,
this goes
True
to-
Detective
this
is
goes-
a more grounded thing. It's like it's always
well,
supposed
this
to be
goes
like
to number two.
it's kind of supernatural, but then it all comes to be grounded and explainable. That
Well, this
doesn't
goes to
happen.
number two. This
Okay.
goes to number two. So that was reason one, that they did something. Not sure
Okay.
how they did it. Number two is that it is supernatural. We get the oranges rolling. We get the one lady seeing her dead husband. We get
Navarro
and literally ghosts. Right.
And also in theory being the person that one guy sees when he says she's awake, like she like time loops somehow at that moment. Like that's what it seems to be, is like she's the thing that the guy is like in the very beginning when the guy's like hyperventilating, like he's like she's awake. It was setting it up like he saw her in some kind of weird time loop thing. But that's what happened.
He saw Navarro.
Yeah, because Navarro's doing that thing and she's walking around and then he does it. You just see it from the angle of Navarro's POV of like him hyperventilating and then turning around saying she's awake. And it's like supposed to be she was the thing that they saw that scared them initially.
Interesting. Well, I kind of took that as more of like she was walking through a detective mode and kind of seeing.
But
like,
even if you think about the line the guy delivers, it makes no sense if he's seeing a bunch of native women with guns.
Well, it seems like
She's awake.
that.
What the fuck does that mean? There's 10 native women with guns in our faces. That makes no sense.
I think he says that in response to the power going out.
But it's
right?
like, but he's
and
like,
then,
he,
and then
like
the women come in.
Sure, but even then, it's like
it seems like he's guilt ridden by the death of Andy because he ends up actually killing her. He's the one who does the final.
Yes,
which I liked.
I like that detail.
I did too. I like it when they're telling you something and they're showing you something different. That's always fun.
I do too.
And so I think it's just the logical explanation is that he's PTSD from it. He is guilt ridden and he's basically hallucinating, right? Which
Sure.
on the grounded level, with Navarro, they've already set up that her sister obviously has mental illness. She's
Killed
alluding to that
herself in the middle of the show. Yeah.
she's also being Navarro is saying things like she's also being called
She's
to it now.
yeah, right.
My mom was called to it. My sister was called to it. Like basically implying that it could also be mental illness on her end.
Sure.
And so, I mean, like it's the thing. Again, I don't think the show, frustratingly for me, I don't think the showrunners wanted to answer these questions. They wanted to kind of give leeway, right? I think the orange thing, the oranges rolling around, like it ended up being her mom used to love cutting orange. I think her mom, right?
Sure.
Her grandma loved cutting oranges. We keep seeing oranges throughout the thing, like her grandma's around,
Yes.
right? We keep seeing like Annie's around. I mean, I think it's which is always Navarro's perspective, right? Well, actually, Jodie does see an orange as well.
Yeah, she does.
So
To me, it's just that like it's fine if you want to have a show or a mystery end open-ended where there could be multiple explanations for it. I just think that when the question is it supernatural? And like, yes, of course, maybe it's supernatural and we just sweep everything under that rug. Oh, it's supernatural. But if it isn't supernatural, it would have to be the most convenient set of events that have ever expired for like this scenario to play out.
Well, that's called movie making.
Yeah,
now.
but when you're a mystery show and you're positioning this as a show that, hey, audiences, you might can figure this out if you're watching close enough.
Yeah.
Like to me, that just becomes frustrating. It's like,
well, yeah, but here's the answer. I said it earlier. The reason why you're having these problems is because you're not emotionally connected to their arcs at the end of it. Look at Inception. There's great debate on is Leo inside the dream world or is he out of the dream world at the end, right?
Sure, right.
I think that ending lands with you whether you connect with his journey or not.
But to me, the other reason that ending lands is because the movie entirely supports both versions adequately. If you want to read the movie as he was in a dream the whole long, the movie reads like that, and there's no part of it where you're but what about this? And if you want to read it the other way,
I think Night Country definitely is an argument that it's supernatural.
It is,
and then if that's the case, then if it's supernatural, then her tongue being there is totally plausible because it
is. But to me,
what else?
Given
what
that,
else reason do you
to
need?
me, that's not a satisfying ending. If this whole thing is like it was slightly supernatural with some Native women's help, to me, that's a pull it out your ass ending. To me, that's not a we thought of a really clever thing. It's just like
I kind of disagree a little bit. I mean, I think if the whole show is kind of it's very alluding to supernatural shit going on. I would say more so than realism.
It's alluding to it very, very. It's always giving room for what if it is supernatural. And I guess to me, this is where maybe this is the issue. Maybe if this wasn't called True Detective, I'd like it more. Honestly,
valid.
At the end of the day, it's like I think what I was expecting was, I think especially because I watched season 3 right in the middle, and I got like a refresher course on like, oh, I like this mystery, how this is playing out. I probably was, but it's like Daniel. It was like, man, like I really enjoyed that kind of detective story. That's kind of what I came away from season 3 feeling like, man, it's so good to have just like. It's a really good mystery and there's characters you care about and they're just solving it and you're kind of trying to solve it with them. That's just a nice genre. But this wasn't that.
Season 1, 11 out of 10, right?
And I think similar way, like you're kind of trying to figure it out with the characters and it feels like you could. Like it doesn't feel like it feels like it's a logical progression of investigation.
Yeah, I think part of the issue too is that the way you make ultimately a successful like mystery show is that you give the audience the tools to also learn it. And maybe you don't give them all the tools, but you give them most of the tools.
Or maybe you don't explain the tools fully. You know what I mean? It's like that. Yes.
The great example, of course, it's the best example of The Sixth Sense, right?
Right.
They show you in the first scene, Bruce Willis dies.
Yeah.
But they keep presenting you things that through a second watch, you're like, oh my God, of course.
Yes.
Oh my God, of course.
Right.
And that's the best twist probably ever because of how it was set up and how it was delivered at the end. I have
Right.
to go back and watch True Detective. I don't think it's necessarily that, but it's complicated because it's also a
Yeah.
TV show versus movies, blah blah blah.
It is. It is.
Um, I don't think they maybe necessarily gave you all the tools to understand. It is, I mean, here's the thing too. It's like it's kind of frustrating when for the women example, the clan, I keep calling them the clan. The
Sure.
clan at the end, they already found the missing detail early, right? Which was the star-shaped prong
Right.
thing.
Right. Right.
And so that I don't know, it's a weird thing where it's weird. It's weird.
It's
I
also
don't know.
slightly weird that the cleaning ladies are just have no reason to suspect the scientist at this point. Notice water dripping down a hatch and just decide to go like snoop a little bit. Like, it's like it almost tries to set them up as like, oh yeah, they figured it out first, but they kind of figured it out on accident. I mean, she's just
They
mopping,
well,
and then
they did fit. They 100%. There's no version where it was not discovered by accident. Yeah.
sure, sure.
She goes down there. She finds
The star shaped
whatever
tool
it
is the main thing. Yeah,
the star-shaped tool, and then they like, what's going on here? They look at Annie's because they're like, where
yeah,
did Annie go? And it knew that Annie had been close to whoever worked
right,
there.
right.
And
Yeah,
maybe this is secret rooms. Maybe there's more
right,
secrets. Maybe it's involved to Annie because we care about her. And it happened to be that in her autopsy reports, the star-shaped tool was there. They
right.
discovered that, and through that, they're like, oh, well, they must have
Sure.
killed her,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, like, it's absolutely happenstance. Um, I don't hate that, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah, and part of
I
this
don't
is I'm
know.
trying
I
to
don't know.
parse. It's like, Catherine and I finished watching it. So we watched it Sunday night, the night it came out. And I think it was just for one, I did feel like I know it's funny, I've seen opposite opinions on the internet. I almost feel like this show could have used one more episode because I personally felt like where we ended episode 5, which was just like there's literally every mystery is still a mystery, almost like we haven't figured out anything really other than like she was killed in these ice caves and we're gonna go try to find him, kind of thing.
Question:
um
wasn't Annie a reporter?
I
Right.
don't remember what her job was.
I think
I,
she's a
I don't
journalist.
I don't remember anything about her other than that she was a native Alaskan and she dated the lab dude. Like that's the only things.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that's even
pretty
one
sure
thing
she
that
was a
might have
journalist,
worked better.
which is why she was there to
I
begin
almost,
with.
and again, season 3 has this, and season 1 does too. I almost wish they had taken the typical route of showing Annie's murder in real time. Like the first episode or two is that, and then we jump forward in time, and then we finish it out later. Because that I think that was the issue too, is that I didn't really feel attached to Annie. I didn't really care about her.
Yeah,
As a character, it was just like these two characters are like so moved by her, especially Navarro. Like this character is so big to her, and I really don't have any attachment to that character. I don't know anything about her. I don't
Yeah.
know why I should like her.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that ties into something we're working on personally. Because I've been
Oh,
thinking about this hardcore for about 2 months.
yeah,
But I think you're right. But I think that's the tricky thing is what you should have seen was the show should have opened on the recording where you don't see the
sure,
killers, you see that because the whole point of the show is basically who killed the killers, and is like, well, the killers, or yeah, who killed these men, and the thing is these men are actually killers, right? So like
right,
so you
right,
can't show the men killing her at the
right.
beginning of the show. You can't with the story that they've concocted.
Yes,
But
that's right,
I agree in the fact that the video should have been shown or whatever, and the video just ends, and we have no context of what we just got
right.
seen. And later, the characters maybe discover the video, and we're seeing them
Yeah,
react to what we've already seen
yeah,
first
right,
5 minutes of the show.
right.
So I'm pretty sure she's a journalist, first of all. Like I'm pretty sure I have to go back and look that she has something to do with the news. I think it's why she's dating that guy, but also she's doing something also on the compound, I think.
Okay,
She's like investigating the compound. So I think to me, I didn't feel that way where like we don't have enough time to wrap things up because I was just kind of like, well, it's clearly something to do with law enforcement or someone doing with a dig. Because also, again, we're especially trained as filmmakers, but I'm like, okay, well, the pollution of the water absolutely has something to do with the men's death. Like we know that.
sure,
Like I knew that. Like Ryan was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. The mine in
this,
town polluting the water, that was going to be involved, and their
yeah, it
scientists.
was like this is absolutely has something to do with it. So I was just kind of assuming there's something corrupt. She found something she wasn't supposed to do, and she died, and the men were tied to it in some way. That's what I thought.
Right.
And it wasn't like I honestly wasn't. I wasn't trying to figure this one out as much as I normally do, just because I also didn't feel like I was being given the tools to figure it out.
Sure.
So I just didn't really try.
Sure.
I was just kind of like, so I mean, and which again is a problem. I think you want your audience invested in that
Yeah.
more. But yeah, and so all I thought was weird was for me, maybe I missed dialogue, or I don't know, but I didn't really realize Navarro and Jodie Foster's character had been partnered up earlier.
Oh yeah, I did somehow.
I didn't realize that.
Whenever they did that flashback of the thing that made them stop being partners, where we basically found out it was Navarro shooting that guy.
Yeah.
Because again, the kid that we can get to him because I'm really confused about his character. Is like, why did y'all stop? He's like asking her, like, why did y'all break up? Why did y'all start being partners? And then it's her telling half the story. Yeah, it is interesting. So True Detective always is kind of like, the cops aren't saints in True Detective. They never have been. In fact, they're sometimes.
I mean, just to kind of stop you though, I mean, comparing it to the other 3 seasons is going to be almost impossible because all 4 seasons are pretty different. But I can already concede and agree with you that a problem with this show is that this season may be too different. Primarily 1 and 3. Season 2 is pretty fucking different. Like it's different.
And I'll just say that, but like a theme that we can identify running through all the seasons, I think, is it's cops that aren't necessarily the best cops, but they're doing what they can they're in some ways willing to break rules to try to get the right result, right? They're willing to get dirty to get the answer.
Most cop shows ever, honestly.
Right. Yes. But I think that's one kind of moral dilemma this show plays with, is that our good guys aren't entirely good. The people we're rooting for have issues, show problems, either are unwilling to follow rules, or even in the first season, what's his name's having an affair with this other chick on his wife. Like there's reasons that you're like, I'm rooting for you, but there's parts of you as a character that I find problematic. And that's kind of part of the show, is you have to be able to accept that to kind of go along for the ride, is that these guys aren't saints. They have issues, they have moral failings, but they are trying to right this one wrong, and I can root for them in this journey, kind of thing, right?
But I want to add in there, though, that I think while there's things they do personally that are obviously things that I don't enjoy or condone, I think at this stage in our culture, obviously, with these characters doing things that are against the rules sometimes, I don't think the rules are always a good thing.
That's fine, but I would say that the show does not. That in the context of the show, it is not about cops breaking rules that are bad to do good things. I do feel like the show kind of sets it as like, no, these guys are breaking the rules, and you can decide if you think it's okay. The show is not gonna tell you, yeah, this was like these guys did the good. It's not like one of those like the commander said we can't go in there. Well, I'm doing it anyway. It's not that.
No. It's literally that. It's literally that. I mean, they're being told by like when Jodie Foster is sitting in that boardroom, it's like episode 5, and they're like, "Yeah, the case is closed. Like, don't quit fucking investigating more." And it's clear that the higher ups in her own department, people who are supposed to be not dirty, for the good, for these things, they're telling her stop. And then even the guy she has an affair with is like, nobody fucking likes you because you don't play ball. And playing ball means covering up a murder.
Sure. But I guess in this season, but I guess what I'm more thinking about is the setup to these characters. Yes, during the plot of each of these seasons, we do see them break rules that we're in favor of them breaking because they're trying to solve the case and we want to know that. I'm saying more of like how we find these characters. Like when we meet these characters, they're already problematic people. They've already showing that they are not,
which I think is fine.
It is. I think it's interesting. It's much better than having saints be these protagonists. I guess though, to me, this does feel different in that like Navarro and her partner killed someone and just decided it was okay. And I don't feel like the show. It's this weird thing of like.
That's just opinion, I guess. Yeah,
I guess it is, but it's like it does feel like the show is more okay with that. Maybe I don't know. I'm getting lost a little bit in my words.
I think this one feels like you're more you have a problem with them killing the guy who raped and killed me.
No, not necessarily. I just feel like it's that paired with also what they decide to do in the end is play ball, right? They don't play ball with the cops and their friends, but they play ball with these women, right? They're gonna let them get a pass for this, right? And I don't know if it just kind of feels like in this season, vigilante justice is justice, and I do feel like in past seasons they at least frame it in the context of like they did it, but was it worth it? Almost kind of thing. I don't know.
I think we're potentially splitting with just like our own moral codes and values.
Sure.
And I think maybe these characters just don't 100% line up with yours is the problem. And so
none of the season's characters line up with mine. But you
know what I mean, though.
But for some reason,
I think Matthew McConaughey's character is pretty. I have to watch it. I can't remember all the bad things he does. If he does bad things, I think he's just a tortured character.
Sure.
He makes choices that make him unlikable to other people because he's
I'd have to
very negative. But I don't think he's sleeping with other people. He's not cheating on people. He's more of the moral character of probably the True Detective universe. I haven't seen season 3.
Yeah.
But
Well, I will say Mahershala is pretty moral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, I feel like Matthew McConaughey is pretty moral. He's just haunted by the death of his family.
Exactly.
And he's just making everyone else suffer.
On life at the beginning.
He's making everyone else. Yeah, he doesn't have to like be philosophical and say shit that people typically don't want to hear, but he does it anyway because he's upset with his life.
Yeah.
So, I think he's a pretty moral character. He's just showing it in ways that some people would find unfavorable, which I don't care. I don't know. I don't know if they're playing ball. They're playing ball with the women, but I think it's maybe a wrong thing to say because they're definitely not playing ball with the bad guys, which are the cops and the head. Those guys aren't great, right? Her chief captain, those guys. It's it might be better if I kind of thought this is what was going to happen. Oh, they released the video at the end. Yeah. Because she's
of what?
Yeah, because for a second I thought part of my issue was they don't go after the higher ups, but they do because Jodie Foster is almost in the identical room that Matthew McConaughey is in season 1, where she's being interviewed by like the FBI or somebody that's even outside her own outside the people she's been working with, because they basically protect the women who killed the men. And then they released the video that Navarro actually recorded.
It's the video of the confession, though. Yes.
Right. And the confession tells, hey, we killed Andy and we covered up this with the oil people, all these things. So they do kind of go after the main bad guys.
I think it only talks about the pollution in the confession video. I don't think he mentions Annie. I think he's just saying we were hired to cover up the mines stuff. I don't believe they mentioned it. I could be wrong, but I think that was the part they got. Okay. At least they didn't seem to also show the whole video. You got like the first little snippet of it.
I kind of assume his confession was longer than what they showed us. But either way, I mean, they're still
the mine is, there's consequences for the mine who was involved.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why wouldn't they? I mean, I guess I don't know. I would assume he was going to confess about the death of Annie, or he did or something, because
okay. Yeah. They may have, and I may not be remembering that detail. Either way, though, I think your point stands is that like all of the bad forces that were in play were punished to some degree, right? The men died. all the men died. The mine is the mine's pollution is revealed to the world, which are mainly those are the two parties that were involved in the murder. And so yeah.
And theoretically, from there, other people will speak up. You know what I'm saying? Like that, the kind of the chain. And there's also a version where nothing happens. They get a slap on the wrist, they get a fine, they continue to do what they're doing with, you know what I'm saying? Like you don't know. But
that's okay. I mean, I do.
But that's how all movies work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you don't always stop.
And even in
everything.
season 1, there's this feeling of like they punished the guy, but is the institution that was like behind him still around? I felt like that was kind of a feeling of end of season 1. They found one guy, but was it this bigger thing? And this is all we get kind of thing, kind of like feeling. It's I think what's interesting about this ending is that it does seem to try to wrap everything up with a somewhat of a bow on it. Obviously, the Navarro thing they're leaving as a mystery, but either way, either version of the mystery is kind of still the bow. Like she was at peace. She found her peace before either she found her peace by becoming a supernatural element, or she did it before she died. Right? Like,
well, I think to me that the evidence there is that she takes off the gloves in her hands, which is not good for you if you're walking through the Alaska, and she's wearing the exact same outfit she's wearing on the deck with Jodie Foster.
Is she?
And and there's some symbolically like Jodie Foster is in a prison. We all know
that if you turn into a spirit with whatever clothes you have on, you're going to wear those for eternity. That's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So it's like to me, it's like if you look at the shot, I have not read this, whatever, but looking at the shot, Navarro is in a gigantic open door.
Yeah, they're framed differently. Yeah,
and she's standing. Yeah. And there's the Alaska in her background.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster is encapsulated in a window, which has frames on it, which is like a jail cell. So it's like, just thinking like that, it's like Jodie Foster, while she may be at peace because she's acknowledging the afterlife, because she looks over to Navarro, she's acknowledging that Holden is alive.
Right.
She's still not free yet because she's not dead. And then Navarro is looking out at Alaska. I'm just making all this up. Navarro's looking out at Alaska, and she's looking over Alaska, and she's free. She's even framed freely. So to me, that's and then this the interpretation. It's like
I think you're probably right.
Jodie Foster has accepted there's something else beyond, and she's not alone. And Navarro has found her peace in some way, and
I think
there's still
You're right. I think maybe that's where the other seasons also I find the endings more, because I do feel like maybe in the other seasons the endings are more nuanced. The endings are more, they did accomplish a goal, but there's bigger things going on around here that are problematic to a degree. I definitely think True Detective season 3 is that way, where they accomplished the original goal of the story, but you're left feeling like the institutions that made this happen are kind of going unpunished, right? The systems that are in play that are making this possible are still there and thriving and all that kind of thing. I think that was the feeling I had at the end of season 1 too, right? Was a feeling of they did win this. How big of a victory is this in the scheme of things? We don't really know. This may be a drop in the bucket, but they did get their guy. They got their guy.
Yeah.
I do feel like the ending of this one is more of a bow, is more of a everybody turned out okay that is still alive kind of thing, and everyone that was bad got their penance, except the dude that kills his dad and seems to be fine with that afterwards.
I don't think it's clear he's not gonna be fine. I mean, she even says the writers told us, or whenever that woman said, when he threw his body in the river, said, "This is not the hardest part. The hardest part is forever after this moment."
You're right. I just don't think. So, I think they told us that. They never showed it to me. I never got it.
I mean, do you want a 30-year-long video of him being depressed?
That's not what you need to show it.
I'm saying, like, that's what I mean. It's clear. I think I can make the connection, being like, okay, this kid killed his father. He's not going to be okay.
Yeah, but to me
what's weirder is his relationship with his wife is kind of fixed at the end. That's more problematic to me.
But I think to me it all comes together as a character that just doesn't feel fleshed out.
And the other issue is for me is that what's more interesting was the dad is kind of like, don't let I don't even know her character name. Don't let Jodie Foster, don't let her like basically tell you what to do or don't,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And what's more interesting there is like Jodie Foster is not good for him. This place is not good. Even though she might have the best intentions for him, doesn't mean she's good for him. And so I think
But
that,
but at the same time, I also felt like his wife was being a little ridiculous. Like, you married a cop. Like,
well,
to a
that's
degree, like that was part of my issue even in the beginning of that. Was like, I get like that you don't see your husband as much and that can create tension. Blaming your husband for what his boss is making him do, that does not, I mean, like, that to me is like, I don't
hey,
know if you have a leg
that's
to
kind
stand
of
on.
like the story as old as time for cop stories. Um,
But that
and
doesn't make it good.
doesn't
I'm
make
just
it doesn't
saying
make it doesn't make it
his little
good,
arc as a whole is
but
like, he has a
that
wife
goes
that
back.
doesn't understand his career, and then he has a dad who was manipulative at the very least, but also slight, like his dad was a weird character. At times I thought he was abusive, and at times I thought he was like a like he got drawn into a Russian wife scam kind of thing. Like, I'm like, I just
Well, he's
didn't know
definitely
quite to,
abusive.
but not like, I
I
mean,
mean, he
he
moved.
hits
He
his
come.
son once.
That's not abusive to you.
No, it is, but to me, like, the
So like
rest of
that's
their relationship didn't feel like an abusive dad relationship. Like, it was like, oh, he's abusive, and his son to some degree doesn't like his dad, but then he's always trying to help him and kind of like be in there for him in a way that didn't seem like, it didn't feel like, oh, this son is a guy that hates his dad and because he was abusive.
no, no. I think you feel sorry for him.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think especially with the wife thing,
the
yes.
the the
Uh,
main interaction they have after he gets hit by his dad is his dad. The main interaction after he gets hit is his dad has stood up at the airport,
yeah, and
and
then
so
he like
it's like
hangs out with him instead, or
yeah,
yeah,
or
yeah,
almost does. He ends up having to go to
sure,
do police stuff because of Jodie
right,
Foster's character.
right.
I mean, just real quick, Jodie Foster. I mean, again, I mean, we could. I have 3 minutes. I
Yeah,
mean,
you're
we could
good.
talk about this all day long.
I
But
think at the end of the day, to me, what it comes down to is the characters felt inconsistent. The characters felt to a degree unlikable, and I don't feel like the show made like did enough to make me come around on that. And I think you're right. The plot is it is wrapped up, but because the character internal arcs aren't strong and because they really don't connect to the plot, it just felt unsatisfying as an ending. And I think they wrapped up
sure,
everything in one episode at the end, and it felt like too much to wrap up, and it just kind of felt like a mess by the end of it. And that's just and at the same time,
yeah,
I
it's fine.
enjoyed
It's
it and
valid.
I watched it,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
entertained the whole time.
Same
But
here. Yeah, I think the second most fun thing about the show, or maybe the most fun, is just talking to you about the show because
absolutely,
I
yeah,
because I think it's allowed us to kind of have that water cooler talk about it. I wish we had more time actually, because I have way
yeah,
more to say about it. Um, but yeah, I think one thing to walk away from this also is last thing we'll say is, and this has to be the last thing, is that Nicholas Palazzotto, whatever his name is, Nikolai, he's listed as executive producer. He didn't do nothing on the show. He didn't
oh,
write
oh,
it. He's
oh,
made
he's
he's made
been
it very
dragging
clear.
it. He's been dragging
He
it.
didn't, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's been very clear that he didn't have nothing to do with the show. And
No, but he's been reposting fans
oh, I know.
tearing down the show and
Oh, I
saying,
know.
"Wow, they never should have let you out of the writing was horrible." Which I'm like, that's an interesting career move.
Well, yeah,
That's,
he's
I mean, I know
and then
his career is set. Maybe he's
well,
got all the jobs he
yeah,
wants, but like, that's like
yeah,
that does not make you a likable
yeah.
coworker.
He's taking down some of these posts, which tells you they were out of passion.
It tells you his manager got involved and his PR team got involved and said,
Yeah,
"Bro, you're
yeah.
not gonna get any more jobs."
I have 1,000 more thoughts on this, but Daniel, how can listeners find us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you thought of season 4 of True Detective Night Country. We were a little all over the place in this episode. Maybe that's an indication of this season. Let us know what you think about that. bit.ly/241mail.
And if you can't hit us up at our Bailey, you can always find us in the comment section below, youtube.com/2for1studios. It's the best place to consume the content. Daniel, thank you for talking to me about episode 190 something about Night Country. I think you're right. I think having the name True Detective ultimately hurt it in the end.
Yeah. I think this could have been a cool Native Alaskan story that was just a Native Alaskan story, and it might have been a lot better. I might have just received it totally different. I don't know.
I think you would have. My name is Donovan Thompson,
I am Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.